Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Heritage. And on this week, we're going to be talking about the frontiers of the Roman Empire. We actually just got done talking about Hadrian's Wall for our most recent podcast episode that went live just this past Monday. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. But we figured that this was the perfect tie in because it is an inscribed UNESCO World Heritage Site. But we discovered that it wasn't just Hadrian's Wall or the Antonine Wall. It was actually also including some Rhine fortifications in Germany.
The German lines along the Rhine and Danube rivers were also included. These are later additions than the walls in Britain, but they are all part of one UNESCO World Heritage Site because they all show the same outstanding universal value about the same culture. Just, several hundred miles apart.
Yeah, which the map shows that you could see pretty much along the Rhine River there, and then Hadrian's Wall up north goes pretty much across the northern portion of England, and even has some parts further down the coastline. It worked to help protect the Romans from the Scottish or the Picts, right? It was to
Yep.
protect them, not for any other
Eh,
reason.
kind of. Same thing with like the German Lima system. A lot of it was all about deterrence, like we talk about it in the podcast episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mainly built to deter from any sort of violence or small raiding, which was fairly common at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea was if someone was going to come across either of these very volatile borders for the Romans, that one, the Romans would know about it, and two, the defensive works you were going to be running through would slow you down enough for the Romans to catch you up or catch up to you. The Romans were, for all their renown for being quick moving, were relatively slow to assemble. And let's be honest, unarmored man on horseback is better than a man in full plate armor running on foot. You're just never going to win that race. So this was designed to give them a chance to catch you.
And it was very much a way to also control the flow of people into the territories. I mean, if you have restricted border access, then you can specifically guide people into certain areas. And then along those inclusions, it was like every third mile, they would have a smaller fortification there, a small garrison that people would be at. So they would also have communications along the lines in case there was an impending attack or anything of the nature. And specifically with Hadrian's Wall, it was built like that, and then in later generations, the Antonine Wall was built further inland, what, about 30 miles or so further north?
And
Yeah,
that
the
one's like
Antonine
a
Wall
wall and ditch kind of thing.
it was built 100 miles up, but it's half the length because
Yeah,
it's
so it doesn't go
yeah,
the full way, and it was much, much deeper into enemy territory. And this is a really cool thing in my mind because most of these were built by military engineers. These were military constructions. They were built partially to do protective and defensive fortifications, but it also kind of helped keep the army engaged and active and building and honing their skills even in time of maybe not the most violent warfare.
yeah. Yeah, it is one of those things with relative peace and massive armies is that you do need to keep them sharp. And whenever the armies weren't fighting, whenever your province wasn't part of a war, you were doing these sort of engineering projects, whether it's defensive bulwarks like we see for the German border and the Scottish one, or more common civilian things like bridges and road building, which were done everywhere. But I believe you can see most of them in France very nicely. France is a very good example for that.
And one of the
This is
things
what we did.
one of the things I highlighted during the podcast episode that's important to note here is a lot of these were for power projection to show how strong you were, how tough you were.
Yep. Yeah, it's
And
also
yeah.
this is also a world without global positioning. There's no definitive map saying you are now in Germany, you are now in the Roman Empire. There's no clean border for that. Maybe there's some waystones along the main path, but not everyone is using the main road. And so you walk out of the woods and you see one of these things standing at the bank of the river. You know, oh, I'm crossing into the Roman land. Roman laws apply. I better not do some things.
It's also interesting too because a lot of the other things we were talking about here is not only does it denote the location and everything. Oh God, what's the train of thought I was gonna go on? But I lost my train of thought. That's really embarrassing because that was really
retroactively read his mind.
You guys are making me laugh. I know exactly what I was talking about. Roman mentality through a lot of their empire was about this expansionist, and one of the things you see historically among pretty much every major empire or civilization is a point where they expand so much that they hit a critical mass and end up collapsing from within or crumbling. So in a lot of these long-standing empires and these long-standing civilizations, one of the key hallmarks is periods of growth, but also periods of consolidation. And this is one of the things that Hadrian specifically really started getting looked at in a better light, because this was very much a consolidation of Roman power. It was the furthest extent of their influence, of their pure control, and this is an example of how they combated that issue and how they worked to try and almost remedy it in a lot of ways. It's a very fascinating approach that you don't normally see, and especially given Roman mentality in a lot of expansionist thought processes, to see them have a level of contraction like this, but also effective, because you really don't hear much about it afterwards. I mean, the wall stood for 300 years, and I'm assuming the limes also stood for hundreds of years even after the Romans had left that region.
Yeah.
So the key thing with the limes is you'll notice that unlike the Maginot Line, they don't extend all the way to the sea. A big part of that is the Huns.
Oh no.
The Germanic limes are a 3rd century creation as opposed to like the 2nd century creations of the British walls, and they were kind of designed to sort of cut off the most direct routes into the heart of Roman territory. If you want to go around, you're going to have an easier time, but you also have to go hundreds of miles out of your way, and that's where the Huns came through repeatedly.
Savages.
Yeah, but it's one of those things too, where like some of the fortifications aren't on the UNESCO World Heritage List because they don't exist anymore in any form.
And like we talk about these because they're well-preserved examples, like most of the lines and most of the walls actually stand true to their historical form and are great archaeological sites and great research sites. And again, one of the things I talked about in the podcast episode, highly recommend you go watch, is the fact that humans never change. Humans have never changed once. So on the wall and on the limes, you have graffiti that is pretty much found in every high school across the world. There are just phallic objects etched into the stone. You have like Marcus was here, Claudius smells, like just the dumbest things that are so stereotypically human. I just love it.
I love how that's like, then this is my benchmark for outstanding cultural value to humanity, is just proving that we are oil Romans.
We are. It really is. And you start gaining an appreciation for other cultures and societies when you realize that at the end of the day, despite the language, despite the geography, we are the same.
Yeah, we just like drawing dicks on everything.
And that's a beautiful point for us to wrap up on. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
And as we do, I will judge us for that exact same reason.